So the topic at hand, how are vasanas burned up? You're burning vasanas all the time. The problem is, simultaneously, you're refortifying it. So you're burning gas all the time you're driving, but it's as if you're somehow linked to the refueling tank. So it just keeps feeding it. So when you have understanding, then the desire arises, or you do the action, and then you just accept the result that comes, or you just notice. I mean, you don't even have to act on it. I mean, this is what sannyasis can do. So, it's not like they're just totally desireless. We all have, some desire, but they're able to manage them. So these lifestyle sannyasis, okay, they watch it come up in the mind, or advanced yogis, advanced meditators, they watch the vasana come up in the mind, and then they don't react to it. So where does the energy go? Everything is energy in motion. Every action has a result. You might say that's sort of a spontaneous action, you might say, but it's sprouting, right? And then it's not fortified by a desire like, I like this, so I want to keep it, or I hate this, so I want to avoid it. It's not I guess fortified is the best word. It's not strengthened. It's not given. Reinforced. Yeah, that's what I was looking for. Thanks. So it's not reinforced, so then it just burns up over time. The air is let out of the balloon a little bit, and no new air is coming in. Or the car is burning up the fuel, and no new fuel. It's not being refilled. So they burn up over time. And it's only knowledge that's going to ultimately burn them completely. Because we can exert some of our willpower, but if it's only willpower, our willpower is only we're limited beings with limited will, with limited concentration, with limited, attention span, limited, So eventually our willpower will break down, and oftentimes what happens is when we've just denied these or, tried to repress them, then they spill out in inappropriate ways even sometimes. Yeah. So it's only knowledge that's really going to do the deed. Now, ideally, knowledge is working in conjunction with some of the limited willpower that we have. So again, we're not just totally off the hook, just let them, because try that. Sit and watch your desires and see if you can resist them all forever. It just doesn't go so well. There comes a point where it gets easier, but anyway, that's how that works.
So this is why Ramji says that for a Westerner to go off and meditate in a cave is not going to work, because they're not really encountering their vasanas.
Right.
It's not the place to burn off your vasanas.
Right.
They're going to come up, obviously.
Yeah.
But you're not going to be able to burn them up because, well, why not?
Right.
Well, some of them aren't going to come up until you're actually in the world.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So now, a 14-year-old Brahmin kid in the late 1800s in India, Ramana, doesn't probably have a lot of binding desires, binding vasanas. So he can go shed his clothes, run off to a cave, sit down, and the relatively few vasanas that come up, even if they're a little bit binding, he can do battle with those. But a Westerner? By the time we're 6, we're just spoiled brats. We want everything our way, and we're just conditioned to believe, that we have to have everything our way. And oh my God, we have so many vasanas to do battle with, and they're so strong that it's just not gonna work, And like you say, we do need an arena for them. We do need to be confronted with certain issues so that we can then neutralize it in that way.
Even though in the world we're going to pick up some more vasanas while we're burning off vasanas, some vasanas are primary, you could say, and we need to be in the world to deal with them. Mm-hmm. We'll pick up secondary vasanas while we're doing that, but the primary vasanas that drive us into the world, there's no other way but to see them in the world.
Right. And now remember, vasanas are not the bad guys. It's when they become binding, or when they're raga dveshas that we can't resist or that drive us to act. That's when we're, Swami Dayananda says, you can have 1 billion desires and be free. if they're not binding you. You have one binding vasana, you're still bound. So, yeah, so don't vilify the vasanas. And some vasanas are really good. Vasanas are impressions. I mean, the way that Ramji uses the term, and we can stay with that, the binding vasanas. Even a binding vasana can really serve you well until the very final stage. Some binding vasanas can cultivate a sattvic mind. Good, have a binding vasana for meditation, for devotional worship, for scriptural study, for coming to Vedanta seminars, listening to Ramji's talks, and etc. Okay, that's a good binding vasana to have. Ultimately, that's going to have to be let go of too, because you're going to have to let go of that identity of I'm still a seeker ultimately. But that should naturally sort of dissipate over time. But so even that, I mean, even if we want to go so far as to say binding vasanas, they're not all bad. Okay. But, those ones that interfere with our spiritual growth and distract us, we certainly want to get rid of. And, of course, ultimately, we want to get rid of all binding vasanas. But vasanas like I need to eat and go to the toilet and, we need those, obviously. And we're never going to escape those. So that's part of our makeup. So, we have to. It's a good point. We have to zero in on what are we dealing with here. It's not just eradicating all vasanas or whatever. And we don't have to, even the binding ones, we don't have to eliminate them. We just have to neutralize them. So if they come, fine, we can indulge them. If not, now again, depends on the vasana. We don't want to just have a moderate vasana for abusing children or something like that. No, that would be great. That's adharmic. Let's eliminate that one completely, or at least not act on it. But you know what I'm talking about. I mean, for general purposes, it's just laying to rest those that distract us, disturb us, agitate us, drive us, sometimes to do adharmic actions, to satisfy them.
Or could you make an example of a general binding vasana, a negative binding vasana?
Yeah, I mean, there's a million of them. What? I need to have sex to be happy and to think that I'm a man. I'm a worthwhile male. That's a big one in our culture. Okay? So, get rid of that. I need to have my favorite food. I mean, that's a total, whatever. I need to do whatever activity it is you do every day or something like that. Now, some of that's good. Again, some binding vasanas can serve us, but anything that you find yourself habitually doing, and if you miss that, there's this, I got to have my Starbucks every morning. Well, that's a binding vasana. Now, you can assess to what degree is it binding and how does it affect my life? Does it interfere with my meditation and my self-inquiry and things like that? But anything that when you have to do without it, it's agitating. There's a bit of a binding nature to it, and some of them are really intense.
So when you find yourself in the grips of one of those intense vasanas, what do you suggest?
Exert some willpower. So try to resist it. Pray. That's a good one.
Investigate?
Yeah, certainly investigate. Discriminate. Sit down with it. As we said before, pour it a cup of tea and say, now what do we expect to get out of this? Mm-hmm. And use, since we are so privileged to have these teachings, okay, we have a little bit more at our disposal than the average Joe on the street. So now let's sit down. Let's take this wisdom and analyze this. Is this payoff? Now there will be a payoff. It may be the source may be misinterpreted, but okay, I think I'm getting joy from the object and it's actually coming from me. But nevertheless, when I do get that object, my mind is going to calm down. And so it seems like it's from the object. So there will be some payoff. There will be some temporary joy, but then you got to look at that. Now, how long lasting is that? And then what's the price of that? Because sometimes there's longer term ramifications. And you exert, as you know, first shama, mind control. So like you say, exert some will, observe what's coming up, try to reason with it, so to speak, using the teachings. Then Dhamma's the next, right, line of defense. So try to control the senses. Try not to act on it. I mean, if you want to get free of it, you know. And that isn't always possible. Or, you know, and I mean, it's not just like meaning circumstantially it's not possible to avoid it. It's just, it's too strong. We just give in. We just cave every time.
Rama had a very interesting example. His drinking, you know, his alcohol. And he told once that from the moment I accepted the hangover as an integral part of this whole process, and he didn't pull it apart like I'm just drinking and enjoy it, and the hangover is something else. From the moment I understood that it was one whole, I could drop it.
Right. Yeah.
So he had to include the payoff.
Exactly. That's what I mean. Yeah, you got to take into account, like, yeah, because you wouldn't be hooked on it if there wasn't immediate joy. So don't just look at that. There's going to be an immediate joy. All right, let's go for it. But what's the long-term effect? Okay, the long-term effect in this case, drinking, hangover, smoking. Maybe you have to go a little further long-term. I mean, it might be, oh, God, I'm starting to get that smoker's hack or yellow teeth or whatever it is, smell bad, etc. But then, what about, you know, I might get some health problems. And then, or like you get in a relationship. Okay, great. So now, you know, we've done the nasty. Now there's expectations that rise up, and I got to take this person into account if I'm going to be in a relationship. I'm not as free as I was. And not saying that any of that's bad or anything. I'm just saying you got to look at that. Are you ready for that? Is that what you're bargaining for? Or do you just want the immediate payoff, the feel-good experience, and then now we're going to disregard the person? That's not a very nice thing to do, depending on what their investment might be. They might not be expecting that, or maybe you've even led them to believe there's going to be something more or something. You know, so I mean, and there's everything in between on, you know, any kind of an encounter or object or experience. So yeah, examine it, investigate it, look at the short-term, the long-term effects, what's the expected payoff, then just try to control it, your senses, to the best of your ability. If that doesn't work immediately, then have some compassion. Okay, we're at a stage where mature seekers. So let's not just pretend or not act like a bunch of little, you know, bratty kindergarten spiritual seekers. And oh my God, I'm such a horrible blah, 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 blah. I didn't get what I wanted spiritually. What I should have done, you know, all these judgments, okay? Just say, okay, now let's try next time. You know, so I sinned intelligently, you know, you might say it wasn't so intelligent maybe, but, you know, depending on. And then now let's just lessen this. Before, I never even considered the consequences. Okay, now next time it'll be easier to consider the consequences, might hold out a little bit longer the willpower, and it just strengthens over time. It's like working on a muscle. Because it's just reconditioning. You were conditioned to do this in the first place. So now it's just, you got to recondition yourself. So just put into practice the qualities that will never, you know, be able to assimilate fully or cultivate fully just through willpower. They're the fruit of knowledge. But they also offer us a sadhana. We try to sort of observe some of these qualities or live in accord with some of these qualities. These are dharmic qualities. And through that combination of self-inquiry, exertion of will, it lessens over time. So that, I mean, that's the best, that's all you can do, you know. It's not easy, but...
That's correct. Ramji uses the phrase tail wagging the dog.
Yeah, well, yeah, you don't want the tail wagging the dog. Right.
Tail is actually wagging the dog.
Exactly. Yep. Question? Comment?
No, just a comment. James and Sundari, one of the things that everybody wants is relationship. And James and Sundari did a video
Right.
on relationships, and it's really, really good. And then just a comment, for me, finding Vedanta was crucial because I was told by my teacher that there was nothing I could do.
Right.
So when I would get in situations and I'd feel like this is so not right, nothing you can do. So I would just feel down because but this is what's so great about Vedanta is that no, you have free will, because I was told I don't have free will, and that I can act.
Yes.
So this is so freeing because even though like I act now, but I'm like, well, let's see what happens. You know, I have no idea what's going to happen, but at least I have that power to act.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
it's really important because the Neo-Vaita world says there's no you, there's nothing, what to do. I love that one, what to do.
Right.
What to do, nothing you can do.
Yeah.
And
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, yeah. We, you know, as we've looked at, we only have a sliver of influence on the outcome. But if we do not use that sliver of influence, you're never going to get free.
That's right.
So you gotta use that. So that's where the effort comes in. Now that effort isn't going to produce moksha. It's going to purify the mind, but the effort is necessary. Yes.
Are the Vasana completely burning, or is it like some underground? Like, I don't know, I act like this, and then suddenly I stop for 10 years, and after 10 years, I continue acting like.
You started doing the same thing again?
Started doing the same thing again.
Yeah, that's why you got to be vigilant.
Are they completely burning? That's what I mean.
I'm not sure if I'm understanding.
Are they like completely?
Can you completely?
Can you completely burn them?
Yeah.
Or do they go dormant?
Or are
and
they
then
dormant?
come back?
Like.
No, I mean you can burn them up so that they will never return. But it's good to remain vigilant because you don't know, like, have I just quelled them to a certain extent, but there's still a little appeal here. So stay away from it, you know. Remain vigilant. That's why I said, like, overshoot the mark. It's better to be safe than sorry, so to speak, in this case. Just keep doing sadhana until one day it's just so spontaneous you don't have to think about it. Don't be like, don't let the ego make the call, oh, now I'm enlightened. Because then that's just the ego making the call. So, yeah, just keep working with them. But yes, they can be rendered neutral. Now, because they're rendered neutral means they're still there. The desire still may arise, but you won't be swept away by it. But just this once, I haven't smoked for 20 years, but just at this party tonight, we don't party probably, any of us anymore, but, I'll have this cigarette. And then it's suddenly, I'm bumming a cigarette here and there from people, and then, within 2 months, I'm back to a pack a day. Okay, because I've so maybe, if the desire doesn't go away completely, that's fine if it's neutralized, and maybe, that's the best we'll ever do. Some will go away completely, but some, again, remember we got the smoke over the fire, and we got the dust on the mirror, and we got the infant in the womb. Okay, well, we finally neutralized, really one that was hard and fast, but don't cut it any slack, I mean, Sundari says that. I just always thought that was brilliant. The price of freedom is constant vigilance. It sounds weird, like, well, that wouldn't be free, but, it's so easy to nip something in the bud before it blossoms, and you're free. You're still free. I mean, so it came up, and you just don't indulge it, but it's not so easy once you've indulged it to then pull yourself back. So, preventative medicine, paying attention, yeah.